Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to Coffee Tea, You and Me. This is Keeping It Cool with Coach Powell, trying to make sure that every single week we bring you some amazing opportunities for small business leaders all over the country, all over the world to come together and begin to think about what can be done to make their lives, their businesses, their opportunities, their strategies better and better and better. This is what we do here at the show every Friday night. We've been doing it every Friday since the beginning of COVID. And so we haven't missed very few shows. Every once in a while, I take a little vacation, take a little break. And even then, I'll give you a replay that you can pay attention to. I'm trying to get my little headphones a little straight here together. But anyway, today's got a fantastic show for you today. But before we get into the show, a couple of pieces of homework I want to make sure we straighten out. If you are watching the show for the first time, definitely share this with anybody and everybody that you can. Like it, thumbs up. Go ahead and click on the YouTube channel, the Facebook channel, the LinkedIn channel. You're gonna watch this even on demand, so you don't have to worry about taking any notes. You can go back and catch anything you want to catch from what we talk about today. So make sure that you are engaged and participating as best as you possibly can. If you are phoning in, dialing in from anywhere in the country, we want to know who you are. So put that information in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from, where you're calling in from, where you're watching from, who you are, the whole 9 yards. And we'll put that in the chat because we want to make sure we give you a shout out. We'll make sure we pay attention to you. If you've got a business concern, I don't care what the business is. If you've got something going on you want us to share, you want to put your website in there, you want to put anything you want to put in the chat. We want to make sure you have an opportunity to engage, to participate, to play with us. And if you have any questions about the topic we're going to present today or any other topic, please make sure you ask the question, put it in the chat. Sometimes I can get around to asking a question online. If I don't get around to answering your question online, I can answer your question at a later time. Or someone in the community can answer your question. If it's about your business, if it's about you moving forward, we don't want you to be afraid to ask the question. Now, I know sometimes you might want to be a little sensitive and you might not want to let everybody know who you are and what you're doing. That's why I have my number scrolling across the screen. So if you find me at my phone number, which is scrolling across the screen, you can definitely give me a call, send me a text message, talk to me about whatever your business concerns are for opportunities that you may have that you want me to pay attention to. I definitely will. And I'm looking forward to engaging with you in any way that we can. Okay, today's show, super special, sponsored by our time favorite sponsor, which is Human Engineering. That's why we changed the name to Keeping It Cool with Coffee Tea, You and Me, at Coach Power Training and Development. And because Human Engineering have invented one of the most important technical opportunities I think we're going to have in a long time when it comes to our giving cooling systems an opportunity for inside of data centers to make sure they're doing everything they possibly can do to save energy, to save water, to make the noise go away, reduce the power demand, everything that people are complaining about, communities are complaining about all over them. This can be solved with HVAC. And I think I'm going to try to pronounce the name today. So I forget it right. You guys let me know, right? It's hybrid dry adiabatic cooling system. Hybrid dry adiabatic cooling. That's what it is. And if you guys know anything about that, that's a Shoemake's worldwide patented process to really help cooling the data centers a less uh, a less power driven opportunity. So you'll be able to do that anyway. I'll be talking about that throughout the country because I'm doing this for the second time. I've got our community leadership course, which is coming out. We're talking about that right now. So if anybody's interested in learning about how to make sure that they are doing the best they can with their communities, with dealing with their zoning, their boards members, dealing with a hyperscale organization that might be want to come into their organization and build a data center or a power center or any other type of technical opportunities. We're teaching our course, Community Leadership in AI, technical and environmental justice. And that course is a full day course. It's being taught on the 1st of August, this coming Friday, but the next coming Friday, and we're going to be teaching that course, and right here in Fairfax. So I'm going to put the link to the course in the show notes so that you can check those out, and you can see that on now on YouTube and on Facebook and on LinkedIn. If you're watching it, you can go ahead and log on. It's an Eventbrite site. You can go and log on. It's free. We pay for food. We pay for breakfast, lunch. The location is going to be a nice little country club right here called Penderbrook here in Fairfax County, and we're going to be there all day Saturday, and we're going to be just having a good time and sharing all the information you need to know to lead your communities through any type of opportunities and when involving data centers. I see we've got a couple of my friends from Facebook that are on watching today. Really appreciate you logging on. Appreciate you checking us out. My buddies from YouTube and a couple people from our different Facebook channels. That's great. Good to see you guys here. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put those questions in the chat, and give another shout out to one of our other sponsors, our brothers from Phi Beta Sigma, my favorite dudes, Theta Tau Sigma chapter and the Bigger and Better Business Committee. They support what we do here at Coach Powell Training Development and a lot of things that we're up to, including our next event. We have another event coming up in the 6th of August, and that's going to be at the Tower Club. So if you guys know anything about me, you can find that out on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube, and you'll find out about that event coming up if you need to register. We got a couple tickets available still, and if you want to come on out and network with us, we've got a fantastic show, a fantastic opportunity plan for local entrepreneurs and business leaders. Okay, let's get right down to today's topic. Today's topic is super important, and I got to tell you how it came about. For years now, I've been studying happiness. I've been studying wellness and sort of what entrepreneurs need to do differently. Maybe some things that you couldn't have learned in MBA school. You didn't learn this as you were coming up and growing in the business. If you took over a family-owned business or you started a brand new franchise, no matter how you got to be in business, what you might not know how to do is literally thrive. How do you move from, I'm just getting started, I'm on the grind all the time, I am making sure that everything I need to make my business grow is happening, and I'm constantly in survival mode. How do you move from survival mode to thriving? How do you do it? What do you need to be thinking about? What do you need? So I began to study. I took this from various different points of view. I looked at the religious point of view, I looked at the cultural point of view, and then I looked at the neurological point of view, and what happens when you don't get this right. And so it's super, super important that you pay attention, sharpen your pencils and pay attention, record this, do whatever you need to do to kind of think through and deal with some of the things. And I'm going to ask you some good coaching questions along the way. But the topic today is the 5 shifts, moving from surviving to thriving. This talk is for entrepreneurs, for leaders, for people who are ready to lead from renewal instead of reaction. Now, in doing so, we find that there are literally 5 different kinds of ideas and concepts that you really need to embrace. And we're expressing these ideas and concepts through a thought process called a shift. How do you shift from urgency to vision? How do you shift from heroics to systems? How do you shift from scarcity to abundance? How do you shift from isolation to community? And finally, how do you shift from exhaustion to alignments? Now, when you get all of these systems right, you begin to think about things differently. Because most people start off with basically, if I could just survive, if I could just hang in there, if I could just keep doing what I'm doing, you can be successful on paper, but exhausted in private. You might be answering emails all the time. You might be taking the meetings. You might be solving all the problems. You might be carrying the team. You might be making all decisions and smiling while people are asking you how you are And yet, somewhere beneath the productivity, somewhere, something inside you knows you might be, with your pace that you're on to right now, you might be producing results, but you're not producing life. You're not producing the life you want to live. The person that you want to be is not showing up. You're basically surviving. See, that's the hidden crisis of most entrepreneurs and leaders. We don't always fail because we're lazy or careless or uncommitted. Sometimes we struggle simply because survival mode becomes our operating system. We learn to lead from urgency. We learn to depend on heroics. We make decisions from scarcity and we isolate ourselves because no one seems to understand the weight that we carry. And eventually, we normalize exhaustion as if it was the price of impact. But what if thriving is not about adding more pleasure? What if thriving begins with shifting the way we lead from the inside to the outside? Today, I want to offer you 5 shifts that move leaders from surviving to thriving. These shifts are practical, but they're also neurological and they're spiritual. They speak to the brain, the nervous system, the heart, and the soul. And they're not quick fixes. They are invitations to become a different kind of leader. So I want you to think about the leader that you are, the leader that you want to be, and begin to understand from these 5 shifts what you might want to do and what you should be doing differently. The first shift is from urgency to vision. The book of Proverbs says, where there's no vision, the people perish. And one of my favorite African proverbs says, tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. Together, both of these remind us that vision is not a luxury, not for people who it's not, well, I'm going to put this, vision is not just a luxury for people who have free time. Vision is oxygen for leaders under pressure because it gives us today's preparation of future worth saving. Now, what do I mean by that? The problem is that urgency has become addictive. It's good in a way because if you have an urgent something or something that you've been procrastinating on, something that you now have, it's risen to like a crisis mode you got to deal with, you're going to get a lot of adrenaline. And this adrenaline makes you feel needed and it convinces you that everything is on fire. So they must be important because it's on fire, right? But this urgency from a neurological point of view starts to narrow your mind. And under chronic stress, your brain becomes more threat sensitive. The amygdala, which is that back part of your brain, that beginning part or the part that was first formed as you were developing and your neural system or your neurological system was developing, the amygdala often causes your brain to be at alarm or at alert. It gets the signal becomes louder and louder while the prefrontal cortex, where you have rational thought and thinking up here, right? This area is involved in planning, impulse control, and long-term decision making. It becomes harder to access because the amygdala is in charge. You ever heard of amygdala hijack? That's what happens when fear, blame, shame, doubt, all these things, you're experiencing these emotions, and it makes your brain, it hijacks your brain. It makes you not be able to access what you need to access in that prefrontal cortex to plan your way through something, to control your impulses and not be so reactive, to make those long-term decisions. It becomes harder to access because you're so frustrated and you're so, you're focused on survival, right? You're focused on dealing with the stress of the moment. So what happens when you have vision? Vision, and if you tap into that vision regularly, what happens is your brain starts to reorient itself, right? And especially if that vision is clear and it's written, it gives your mind a stable target. It helps leaders always ask things like, or more than that, they stop asking, what is demanding my attention right now? And they begin to ask, what deserves my attention because of where I am called to go? Wouldn't it be nice to be so forward, so future thinking that, you know, the stuff that really shouldn't be getting your attention today and really shouldn't be distracting you today simply does it? Because your vision is so dialed in and you're so forward thinking about where you're going, what your intentions are, and you are able to recall that vision because you've written it down. Maybe you've written it more than once. Maybe you've turned it into a declaration statement for yourself. Maybe you've created a vision that is so powerful that you engage it through song or you engage it through some other type of sensory dial up. So the first shift asks always, do I have a clear vision that guides my daily decisions? Does my team understand that vision? Notice I didn't ask, do they know the vision? Do they understand that vision? Do I measure my success by movement towards purpose or only how busy I've been? I don't know about you, but it's easy for me to get caught up in busy work all day, every day. And it's only when I tap into my vision that all of a sudden I break through and decide I put that busy work aside and I start working on the things that are important to me. I start working about the things that are vital to me. Surviving leadership is driven by the loudest problem, but visionary, thriving leadership is anchored by the clearest vision. Now, if you guys have been following me, you know me, you talk to me on any time in the last 30 years. I always start with vision. Where are you going? Why you want to go there? Who do you want to be when you arrive? Vision to me has always been something that has been useful in providing direction, giving me plugging me into a sense of destiny or calling. It's super, super important. And when you can share that vision with others and you can get buy-in from others into that same vision, get them to engage in helping and working with that vision, you become super, super strong, which we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The second shift is moving from heroics to systems. The book of Habakkuk says, write the vision, make it plain on tablets so that a herald may run with it. And then there's another African proverb that says, by coming and going, a bird weaves its nest. Notice that in both of these phrases, both of these quotes, um, there's movement in both lines that cause you to think about vision and how vision must become clear enough, repeatable enough, and practical enough that someone else can pick it up and run with it. You want to help build what one person could never compete alone. Now, what do I mean by that? When you talk about vision, your vision needs to be shared. It's not just yours. You know, if it's a calling on your heart, if it's a destiny in your life, you don't want to run this race alone. You want to make sure that other people are coming along with you. In fact, you want to use your vision to accomplish more than you could ever accomplish by yourself. But many leaders live in hero mode. And hero mode says, if I don't step in, things will fall apart. And at first, that kind of feels noble. But eventually, what happens is the heroics become a bottleneck. The organization can't grow beyond the leader's capacity, and the leader cannot resist that situation where they feel like they got to do it all. They feel like they got to be all of it. They got to make all the decisions. They got to solve all the problems. And when they cannot do it, there's no rest for the leader. And if and the leader does rest, they can't do it without feeling guilty. Folks, neuroscience gives us a language for this. And the language says when everything depends on one person, cognitive load becomes really high, meaning your brain has to work and be overloaded all the time, constantly. What happens here is you get decision fatigue, and that increases, which means your ability and the likelihood of you making good decisions diminishes greatly. Your memory gets overloaded, the stress hormones remain at a very, very high level. And as a leader, you may look productive, but internally, your brain is burning fuel at an unsustainable rate. You see, systems are not bureaucracy, systems are mercy. A system is a way of saying we do not have to reinvent wisdom every morning because we have documented processes, clear roles, automation, delegation, and we review rhythms to reduce uncertainty. They free the brain to use the best energy for strategy, creativity, and discernment. Who doesn't want that? Why would you want to try to bring an overtaxed system, which is your brain, right? When you need it the most for strategy, when you need it the most to create a new product line or a new way of doing business, when you need it the most to make some very, very hard decisions, do you want to be tired and overwhelmed and overworked and you're smiling but really dying? Do you want that? You don't want that. So when you think about this second shift, you think about moving from heroic strategy to systems, you got to ask a couple questions. And the questions you should be asking is, does my business or ministry run so smoothly when I'm not directly involved? Have I documented what really matters? Do I delegate with trust or do I delegate with invisible strings attached? You see, surviving leadership depends on heroic effort, but thriving leadership builds systems that multiply stewardship. Yeah, you can stand up there and be the hero and do it all by yourself. But I teach a course that I created, um, literally, that's called Building Your Hero Council. And I share people that example, that analogy of Nick Fury from the Marvel Universe. Nick Fury doesn't have any superpowers, but the Avengers would not be as great as they are without Nick Fury calling the shots, being able to bring the right people together, being able to make sure that their individual gifts get to shine in his overall vision of saving the universe, mostly saving Earth. But you know, we always think everything is Earth centric in the world, right? Especially the Marvel universe, and so we want to save the whole universe by saving the Earth. It's kind of funny, but um, when you're thinking about thriving leadership, you have to think about these systems. And you have to think about how these systems can be used to do what we talk about in business all the time, which is making sure that you are multiplying your efforts, making sure that you are doing things not just sustainably, but in a way that's creating growth, right? Talk about that in business all the time. The third shift, and this I think is probably one of the most important shifts. It's one of the ones I love the most of all the shifts, is moving from scarcity to abundance. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you." And the old African proverb says, "However long the night, the dawn will break." That promise was spoken to people in hard places. And it reminds us that abundance is not denial. Abundance is not denial. Abundance is trust in the middle of constraint, but conviction that the present darkness does not get the final word. Scarcity, however, trains the brain to scan for loss. What if there's not enough? What if someone else gets ahead? What if I miss my chance? What if I cannot afford to invest? In scarcity, the leader's attention collapses around limitation and fear begins to masquerade as wisdom. I love this. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in conferences with business leaders all over the world who, think they're doing the smart thing by playing it safe 100% of the time. And they think they're protecting their people by playing it safe 100% of the time. And they use it as an excuse. Well, last time we tried this, it went left. Last time we tried this, we didn't do the things that we want to do. We had to let some people go. Last time we tried this, we suffered. Our prices went down, our valuations went down. We had to, retool and reconfigure everything. And so we're not going to make that mistake ever again. And what I hear when people say that is, I'm not going to try. I'm not going to try to do amazing things. I'm not going to try to take the gifts that I have and the collective gifts that my team has and put them on steroids and figure out how to take them to the highest level of projection that those gifts can possibly be, those talents, those gifts, those strengths. You want to multiply them. You don't want to just like, oh, let's just hit cruise control. But that's fear-based protection, and it has a cost. The cost is simple. It reduces your creativity. It weakens your ability to collaborate with others, and it lowers your risk tolerance. It makes us compare rather than celebrate, hoard rather than share, and defend rather than dream. Most people get started in an entrepreneur vision because they have a dream. After about 5 years or 10 years of doing that thing, man, you can see their soul dying because they forgot a couple things. They forgot to think about abundance. So let me help you with the shift. Because you got to understand what abundance is and what abundance is not. Abundance does not mean pretending that the resources are unlimited. It means refusing to let lack become Lord. It means you practice gratitude, you practice generosity, you practice reframing and celebrating as much as you possibly can. And it doesn't mean that you fake it, right? You have to have genuine gratitude. You have to be openly generous, right? You have to learn how to take the negative story, reframe it into the positive story, and telling yourself the positive story, sharing the positive story with others. I don't mean lying, I mean reframing. It's a whole different ballgame, right? Celebrate the opportunities that there are to celebrate. Give people their flowers right now. If somebody did something great, tell them they did something great. Tell them why you thought it was great. Because when you do this, you strengthen the pathways in your brain that are associated with optimism, resilience, and opportunity recognition. Because once you start to understand and define what greatness is, and you walk in that space all day long, everybody around you walks in that space all day long, you're going to see opportunities everywhere. Oh, we could do this. Oh, we could do that. Or we could share this. And when you go back and share with your other friends and other associates in the workplace because you've created that environment, all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, this is wonderful. This is great. This is not, I see this. Let's work through this. Let's figure out how we can make this even better. In spiritual terms, When you think about abundance, you need to know that it's rooted in the confidence that God is a provider. This third shift, it asks a couple easy questions, right? Well, not so easy questions, but the questions are there. Do I make decisions based on opportunity or fear? Do I invest in growth even when the resources feel tight? Can I celebrate someone else's success without interpreting that success as my loss? Surviving leadership asks, what might I lose? Thriving leadership asks, what might God multiply if I steward it with faith? Real faith, not fake faith. Because real faith, we all know, is substantive. You can hold it, you can feel it, you know it's there. Fake faith, it's like a whispering wind. Yeah, I'm not sure it just happened. You're not really convinced that it's there. So you got to tap into these things. Shift 4. I love this one. This was from isolation to community. And if anybody knows me, I teach networking, I teach relationship building, I teach mentorship, I teach how to become a wonderful beneficiary of other people's kindness. And how do you become the benefactor when it's time for you to show up for others, right? So I've been studying and teaching that stuff for the last 25, 30 years. So I'm going to break this down for you. The Bible, the book of Acts, chapter 2, verse 44 says, all the believers who were together and have everything in common, right? So literally it's saying everybody here together, you're all here together and we have everything in common. The proverb says, the African proverb says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. You see, the early picture of thriving was not about individual brilliance. It was about a shared life, a shared strength, a shared willingness to carry one another farther than any one person could go alone. Leadership, my friends, can be super lonely. And sometimes leaders isolate because they believe no one understands them. No one understands what they're dealing with. Sometimes they isolate because they're afraid if people actually see the weight that they will carry, that they'll lose confidence in them. Sometimes they isolate because they have confused being needed with being connected. And those two are different thoughts. But the human brain, and this I know from sociology, right, is wired for connection. When you have supportive relationships, it helps you regulate your nervous system. When you participate and engaged in healthy community, it gives us what we call, from a neurological perspective, co-regulation, belonging, encouragement, correction, and perspective. Who doesn't want that? On the opposite, though, isolation intensifies stress. Trusted community helps you metabolize that stress. Where isolation intensifies stress, community helps you reframe, reorganize, move that stress into the place where it can be safe for you again to continue to push. So yes, there is such thing as good stress modulated with community. Community also increases what we call psychological safety. When leaders are surrounded by wise people who can challenge and support them, they become more able to learn, adapt, and take wise risks. Notice I said challenge and support them, not challenge or support them, or just challenge them or just support them. These two things work together. When we talk about iron sharpening iron, this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about you just being there in the same space with someone. We're talking about engaging in a way that supports where they're going and what they're doing, and also challenges their understanding and their knowledge about what they're doing and where they're going. We're not designed to carry a calling, a destiny without companionship. We're just not. It's not how humans are built. So this fourth shift asks questions like, do I actively seek collaboration? Do I have mentors or peers who challenge and support me? Am I contributing to communities that align with my mission? Do I feel connected to a network that fuels my growth? Surviving leadership on this hand says, I have to carry this alone. While thriving leadership says, I am strengthening though through I am strengthened through the people that God has placed around me. The fifth shift and the last one is moving from exhaustion to alignment. Proverbs hit this right when the writer said, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. Folks, you can plan, you can strategize, you can create some type of idea or concept. You can play around with it all day, every day. But until you give it away, until you let go and trust that this is the way that your life is going to go. This is the way that your head is going to move you. This is the way. This is the plan. This is the strategy you are going to fully adopt with all the faith and belief that you need to. Then that plan cannot be firm. It cannot be solid. It cannot be something that you can stand on and go, this is who I am. This is where I'm going. This is what I was born for. This is who I'm meant to be. And by hell or high waters, come hell or high waters, I'm going to make it work. And that's out of the Bible. The African proverb that goes along with this says, the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So we're talking about now the discipline, right? Alignment begins when work is not performed, it's surrendered. It also becomes sustainable when the work is carried out in faithful portions instead of exhausting the whole self at once. You see, exhaustion is not just tiredness. Chronic exhaustion changes the way leaders think, the way they feel, the way they decide, the way they discern, and it weakens your executive function, your emotional regulation, your creativity, and your spiritual reflection. All of it. You can't do unless you can relax, recover, relate, right? Because you have a weakened executive function. When you are depleted like this as a leader, you may still be capable, but capacity without renewal is just dangerous. And you have to figure out the smartest way to move from exhaustion and back into alignment. Why? Because alignment restores what we call coherence, right? It brings values, decisions, time, energy, and devotion back into agreement, back into alignment. And it asks simply, can I do this? But it's not simply, can I do this? It's, is this mine to carry? Because, of course, yeah, you might be able to do things, you might be capable of a lot of things, but is this the thing? that you should do? Do the things that on your calendar or on your plot line or on your in your strategy, does it reflect your destiny or your calling? Ask yourself, are you building something that requires you to abandon yourself to it to maintain it? Or are you building something that requires you to give your whole self to it to maintain it? Because if you're giving your whole self to it to maintain it, then you're doing something that's in balance. That's something that's in alignment, right? But if you're, it's like recklessly abandoning everything else to get to where you're trying to get to. You might be trying to achieve a quick little goal or win an assignment or, get to a point where you've finally gotten some level of accolade or achievement, right? You might be doing that. You're making all kinds of sacrifices to do that. But are those sacrifices taken away from you and your self-esteem, your self-concept, this is important that you keep those things in alignment, right? Rest itself is not the enemy of impact. Some people actually have that and they believe it. I'll rest when I'm dead. That's craziness because rest is literally part of the very human design that allows your brain and your spirit to recover, to integrate the learning that you have, and to form healthier patterns. Reflection is never, ever, ever a waste of time. It is how leaders hear again. Renewal is not optional, it's not softness, it's strategic obedience. The fifth shift asks questions like, does my work reflect my values and purpose? Do I maintain healthy boundaries around time and energy? Am I energized by my daily activities? Do I regularly reflect, rest, and renew my spirit? Surviving leadership may ask, how much longer can I keep going? While thriving leadership would ask, what rhythms will help me remain faithful, fruitful, and whole? You see, when you understand and embrace these five shifts, you're able to make the deep transformation that a renewing leader can make from inside out. These are the pathways of renewal. And neuroscience teaches us that the brain can change through repeated patterns of thought, emotion, behavior, and practice. Let me repeat. You can change your brain with repeated patterns of thought, emotion, behavior, and practice. This capacity that we all have is called neuroplasticity. While the scriptures give us the meaning and direction of that kind of transformation, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The African proverb also says wisdom is like the boab tree. No one individual can embrace it. In other words, renewal is personal, but wisdom is bigger than any one leader. It must be received, it must be practiced, it must be shared, and finally, it must be lived in the community. Now, for any of y'all who've been paying attention and you are interested in this training that I created, do me a favor, send me a DM, call me, and I will send the training to you. In fact, I'll send you the whole resource guide, which will include all the Bible scriptures, all of the neuroscience and psychological resources that we use to put this together. And it will also include an assessment that you could take of all the five shifts. And in this assessment, will ask you questions and ask you to you'll self-identify areas of strengths and areas of weaknesses amongst those five shifts. And it can help you even decide what, if any of them, you want to work on and how you might want to work on and make suggestions for you to work on them. So if you want to participate, you want to engage, and you want to take it to the next level, I suggest you get the whole strategy, you get the whole system, and you learn as much as you possibly can, as fast as you possibly can, and come back over and over and over again and practice it. And I promise you, you're going to love the results that you come up with. You're going to love um, the changes the shifts that you're able to make. Okay, guys, I want to show you one last thing, and this is a highlight reel from um, our last training program that we did for AI tech and criminal justice. And you're going to see kind of what other people experienced on that day. And if you get a chance to take that class, I suggest you take it. Today, I had the pleasure of speaking with a group of community leaders about environmental justice and technology.
Really helped to shine a light on some of the triumphs and challenges around data centers, AI, and community awareness.
The key takeaways from the whole workshop today was literally about creating energy and effective communication strategies that will help leaders learn how to become better leaders within their community and how to engage, collaborate, and communicate effectively with those communities.
I'm not an advocate of AI. I think it's ungoverned and it's moving just a bit too fast. So what I learned here is that there are opportunities for governance to occur for the management of AI, for policy to occur, and that we as some of the leaders are responsible for bringing about that governance and to try to make sure that it's optimized and to the benefit of the users and not a threat as sometimes perceived.
I found today's workshop extremely educational. It was definitely informative since AI is definitely in the wild, wild west era right now. It gave some ideas on how we can move forward responsibly.
And so the truth about these things, data deserts are not random. They're really not. They're actually predictable. And AI can even predict them. Why? Because the data has gone in and now it's coming back out. So we could even say where there's missing data in these environmental maps.
The best reason for doing this is to help get the word out that regular people who are concerned about their community have an opportunity to affect their community in a positive way.
I loved the workshop. The speakers were great. The content was great. It was very relatable in regards to the community, environmental justice. I learned a whole lot of information and things that I know that I can take to my community now.
Let's work together, because if we think critically, work together, get the data, and tell important stories, that is how we win as a community.
If you really want to serve the community, you have to think about it comprehensively. You can't just think about it in your own silo. We have to figure out ways to build ecosystems that involve as many as is humanly possible. That's the way to win.
The workshop was very, very beneficial and informative. I learned a lot, coming up with a plan, deriving a plan, working together with the county in order to rectify those problems and turn them into solutions.
This needs to be expanded to make it so that people who are not community leaders, but are the implementers, the C-suite in IT organizations and technical organizations and law offices, et cetera, they can actually get a large amount out of this to start thinking about things which they are not.
This is about giving the community the tools to be able to come to the table, learn how to use the systems that are already involved to make their voices heard and get their concerns addressed. We're going to be able to certify environmental justice warriors all over the state of Virginia, and then DC, and then Maryland, and then the country.
environmental justice. I learned a whole lot of
Okay, guys, I hope you all had a great time. I know I did. It's been a great opportunity to speak with you all, share with you all today. This is Keeping It Cool with Coach Powell Training Development, Coffee Tea, you and me, and we are out of here. God bless you and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.